did you go to school?
And here's your...
What do you think of what's going on right now, mate?
These evil little invisible parasites.
Satan-worshipping Freemason moron.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We're not run by factions.
Get the fuck out of camera!
There are much more powerful international forces in play.
Is this pink guy? Is this what pink guy is? I don't fucking know what's happening.
Please go outside and look at the moon quickly.
It's been crazy, guys, but guess what? It's how it is, mate.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
But I ain't spending any time on it.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this crossover episode with the Conditional Release Program and Some Dare Call It Conspiracy. I'm here with Brent Lee, who is the other half of Some Dare, an excellent podcast that I have come to know and love and is one of my favorite things to listen to. I always check the feed because there's always some great new little thing. Neil reads out a blog post and I'm just like, fuck, that is brilliant. It's it feels effortless, but it's absolutely not, and we'll probably bitch about that. But we're going to talk about conspiracies and how utterly fucked in the head we have been over the course of time, and maybe still a little bit fucked in the head. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for suggesting this little bit of a crossover.
Yeah, I thought it'd be really great. And one of the things I wanted to start off with is the fact that we are going to be partnering with some episodes in the future, which is cool. I'm going to come along for the ride for some of the deep dives you guys do, which I'm really looking forward to because basically, A, I love the sort of like the live nature of being a part of the podcast, but B, the research is just like sort of second to none. The camaraderie is awesome. You know, you have a beer and you listen to some of the most interesting like sort of lectures, and it's just fantastic to be a part of something like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be really great.
Yeah, that's right, man. You are now officially our permanent guest for deep dives, essentially. Our travel companion.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have to tackle time zones, but...
At the end of the day, like, that Pizzagate series that we did was just perfect.
It was so good. I loved it.
And I was thinking, how can we make this perfect every time? Well, let's think of, like, the elements that it contained. And at the end of the day, mate, you were one of these elements. It was just so much fun going through it with you. You had great perspective, brilliant sense of humor. Man. We just all had fun. It was just good. And basically, you know, I just thought that would be badass. I spoke to Neil. I was like, hey, what do you think of this? And he was like, mate, I think that's a fucking brilliant idea.
Brilliant.
And here we are. So I messaged you. What did I say to you? He's like, will you be our Jordan?
Yeah. We'll be our Jordan, yeah. Yeah, I'm totally into it. It's going to be great because, like, it is really nice to be able to sort of go in there having not done the research yourself and having not done the footwork and just be like, have someone else blow my mind, which is really, really nice. Whereas, you know, I do find that, you know, my beautiful podcast host, Jack the Insider, will do true crime deep dives that I'll just be like, what the fuck? But when I research an episode like the recent one of Sound and Freedom, I was just like, you know, doing the episode, you're like, I know all this stuff, I'm just recounting it. Whereas being a part of that, you can sort of sit there and be like, what the like Pizzagate, man, that episode blew my mind. Anyone who hasn't listened to the Pizzagate episode has to listen to it. Absolutely. It's mandatory listening. Now, the next thing that I want to go into is the Some Dare title. So that's a play on a book title, right?
Yeah. The book was None Dare Call It Conspiracy, which is by F. Gary Allen. It was released in the 70s. And basically, F. Gary Allen was a John Bircher.
Ah, nice. Good bunch.
And he kind of helped put a lot of the conspiracism points together in a very easily digestible book.
Oh, good. That's poison.
Basically, and it kind of helped really kind
popularize conspiracy theories, I guess.
Spawn the modern era, essentially, of conspiracism.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Every single like big influencer, like around the time when I started coming up, everyone said like you have to listen to None Dare Call It Conspiracy or read the book or whatever. And yeah, me and Neil were just like kicking about some ideas basically, and Neil said, how about Some Dare Call It Conspiracy? And I just was like, yeah, that's perfect. Fantastic. I actually had that sort of idea myself.
Oh, nice.
Like, I thought that would have been a good title, but I kind of just dropped it and forgot and tried to move on.
Great minds.
And he brought it back, and I was like, yeah,
nice.
That's it. Some Dare Call It Conspiracy.
I had a train ride up to see my friend Isaac up north, and the train ride's about 8 hours, and the mobile phone signals, they don't really work on the train, which is such a blessing because you're just there like a notepad, whatever you brought, because every now and then you get to a train station and you've got like 30 seconds to check your Twitter or your Facebook, and that's it, which is really, really healthy. And I sat there with a notepad and basically wrote down the plan for the podcast. And one of those things was just writing down potential names. And I wrote down just shitloads of random names. I've still got the notepad somewhere and just reams of them. And I was going to give it to Jack and just basically say, okay, pick one. And I did. And one of them was the conditional release program. And I don't even know really why conditional release program came to my head, but I was listening to Conditions of My Parole by Pussifer. And I was like, Conditions of My Parole, conditional release program. Okay, yeah, I'm going to chuck that on there. And I didn't really think much of it because I did not think that was the one he was going to pick. Out of all these ones that I really liked, way more than that one. And then he picked it and I was like, okay, weird choice. I'll go with it. And now looking back, I'm like, thank fucking Christ he picked that one. Man, like there were some real turds in that list. I thought that was great at the time.
It sticks out. It's really
easy to Google. Like, that being said, it is funny because conditional release programs do exist in the US for sort of like, bail and, sort of parole and things like that. Because it is actually a thing, like a legal mechanism for releasing people back into society. And it's pretty funny because there's like us ranting about conspiracy theories and pointing our finger, and then there's like these genuine rehabilitation programs in like fucking Utah and like Denver, and they're like we're trying to really bring them back into the community, and then it's like fucking vaccines, man. So yeah, it's quite a contrast. So I think one of the things we want to open up with is basically peeled origin stories, and I think your one's gonna be more interesting than mine, so I'm going to kick off because basically my one, because I want to give some space to breathe. Mine was basically, as a kid, my mother is an astrologer, and we went to these sort of psychic fairs and festivals around the place where she'd do charts and readings and things like that. She's friends with all the psychics and all the crystal sellers and all the Reiki healers and all the general sort of practitioners of all that sort of stuff. And I ran around these festivals and just sort of made friends. I mean, like we'd be there somewhere in a rural setting for a weekend. My dad would be doing the numerology, my mum would be doing the astrology, and I'd be running around hassling the psychics and trying to get freebies from stall holders and, sort of buying a crystal for $2 and finding out what it was meant to do to my chakras and shit. And it was pretty interesting. And like one of the stalls that was always there was the Nexus magazine, New Dawn magazine. And Australian listeners might know of it, but the UK listeners might not know. It's basically just a conspiracy magazine, but it goes back fucking years. It's like decades old. And the editor, Duncan Rhodes, I think he had a crush on my mum. I'm not 100% sure about that. Allegedly, but he put us on a list, and that list had a perpetual subscription to Nexus and New Dawn. So it just arrived. Every now and then I just have a fresh pot of conspiracy theories. So basically that went straight to the toilet. And my dad also had a subscription to New Scientist, which is pretty funny. So I had a real contrast of toilet reading. There was New Scientist and there was Nexus magazine. And I got both sides. And by both sides, I mean I skimmed through these giant long articles about fucking aliens and weird gene sequencing in New Scientist. And I eventually got to the point where I got pretty sus about things. Fluoride in the water was always a big bugbear for me. And just general sort of political conspiracies. Big pharma was definitely on the general shit list. So that's sort of like the way that I got sort of brought into it through that sort of new age pipeline. But it was always very progressive. And one of the things that really turned me off later, and we'll sort of, skirt around that as we go, is the drift toward the right. I was always the Michael Moore conspiracy theorist type, that sort of left progressive, we need better institutions because the politicians are corrupt. And I also come from an atheistic sort of agnostic background. So it's like when they bring God into it, my eyes just fucking glaze over. But that kind of pilledness was more just the fact that I, believed in a few conspiracy theories. I tended towards bottled water because I didn't trust the tap. And there were a few other things, looking in the sky and saying, oh, maybe there's some chemtrails and things. But you were fucked. I've seen your Twitter, man. You were fucked. Give me your origin story because you were so cooked.
I was.
Yeah.
I was as cooked as the Pizzagate QAnon people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, like I always try and say I was proto Q.
Oh shit!
If you want to try to explain it,
that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, man, my story goes back essentially to 2003 when I kind of happened to come across some documentaries. Yep. I'm interested in documentaries. I'm interested in learning stuff. Figured out how to download it on my internet.
Curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah, innit? And I always kind of was like sort of into stuff, you'd hear JFK or I'd watch a bit of X-Files or any sort of things like that. But yeah, I downloaded this folder And the first video I watched was called Millennium 2000.
Millennium 2000. That's very
And
funny.
it,
Feels like double handling there.
yeah. And it was filmed in 1993.
Okay.
And it was about things that were supposed to happen around the millennium.
Did they though?
And I'm watching this in 2003 thinking, oh, this stuff's going to happen, just like completely forgetting the time. But anyway.
That's a prerequisite for being a conspiracy theorist.
In that, it had like...
You got to forget those things.
in that, it had like kind of stuff about like Freemasons and the Illuminati basically being the hidden hand in world politics and everything basically going on.
Yep.
And I thought it was kind of interesting. My stepdad was in the military and the Air Force, and I'd always heard him talk about the Masons.
Oh, wow.
And that they'd always ask him to join the Masons and stuff like that, but he was never into it. So the kind of, you know, it was familiar, but it wasn't anything that I really got stuck into. I just thought, oh, this is quite interesting, especially the stuff about dollar bill and the symbols on the back of it and things. I was like, it's cool, it's interesting, but it didn't really take hold of me quite at that time.
Yeah.
The next videos I started to watch was 9/11 conspiracy videos.
Loose change and stuff like that.
And those hooked me instantly. Well, Loose Change came a bit later.
Okay, yeah, okay, interesting.
So I think the first one I watched might have been called In Plain Sight.
Interesting.
But I know another one of them was called 911 Illuminati.
Oh, spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see any of this shit.
So, and it kind of, you know, it painted that picture of 9/11 being an inside job. Yep. They did the controlled demolitions thing. They did the World Trade Center. Yep. They did World Trade Center 7, a missile hitting the Pentagon, all of that kind of stuff. And the way they framed it, like I was instantly sold.
It's very convincing.
I was just like, this is something I need to look into.
Yeah.
Because they were also framing it as like, this is the reason why we're going to war in Iraq.
It made sense.
Because it's 2003. And we were about to go to war there. Yep. And like in England, mate, like most people did not want to go.
Oh, same with Australia.
There was hundreds of thousands of people on the street saying we do not want to go to war with Iraq. We all understood why we should go to Afghanistan and we should go get bin Laden for what happened in 9/11 and we'd help America go do that. Yep. But moving on to the next one felt a bit weird.
Yeah, it was a lot of reasons why
and I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I got to say, man, like, again, you know, it spoke to something in my childhood.
Yeah, okay.
The fear of going to war.
Interesting.
With Iraq.
Yeah.
Basically, as I said, my stepdad was in the military in the Air Force. Yep. But my first stepfather was a Marine in Vietnam.
Interesting. Yeah, that wasn't fun.
And he had the worst time.
Yeah.
I had it was a shit like first like 6 years of my life like with him. And it's and now as an adult, like I don't blame him.
Yeah.
He had PTSD. He had night terrors. He drank. He beat my mum to nearly half to death. Like he got sent back to America because of it, and it was fucked. And then we were like abandoned in Germany and shit. So I saw the scars basically of war on him.
Fuck.
And so then eventually, like a few years later, my mum meets a different guy. They get married. And this guy is like the kindest, like the rock in my life.
Yeah,
you know,
cool.
like it was like a father figure
like
that was right there for me.
Yeah.
He was amazing. And, you know, the early 90s rolled around and he was going to get called to go to the Gulf War in Kuwait. And I was like about, I don't know, 11 or 12 or something like that. And I was shit scared.
Yeah.
Because I just thought like, fuck, either he's going to go there and die or he's going to come back and be like Ramon, my first stepfather.
Yeah.
So it's like all this kind of shit in my head of like, so I was just kind of, he didn't end up going, which was, you know, a blessing.
Yeah.
But still, like you see it all happen, and that really formed my teenage years of going away from the government and the military and really hating war and all of that kind of shit, basically.
Yeah.
So 2003 rolls around. I'm not into this going to Iraq. They want to, you know, send more people. So I thought, this is a pretext to go there.
It's an excuse to go to war.
You know, so it sold it
money
to me. And then I needed to find out who these people were then.
Yeah. Carlisle Group,
you know, why did they do it?
All that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And then you start getting back into the secret society stuff.
Yep.
So I was like, oh shit, maybe I should go back to that Millennium 2000 thing.
Yep.
And have a little watch of that.
Skull and Bones,
and then you get into the Freemasons, Illuminati, Skull and Bones, all that shit.
322, all that shit.
And then you're kind of looking at looking at who else is talking about this stuff.
Yep.
Because I only have seen this Jordan Maxwell and Alex Jones
Alex
talk
Jones.
about it. So
Yeah.
I'm like kind of Googling, trying to find other people.
It's a gateway
and I come
drug.
across David Icke.
Yeah, okay. I never
You know?
got into him. Interesting, but it's a UK thing, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah. And so I just started listening to all that kind of stuff. The guy that I actually downloaded the first folder off of as well, he had tons of like truther stuff.
Yep.
So I sent him a message and was like, how do I get hold of more of this stuff?
Oh shit, you're like a junkie.
on DC, because we were on DC++. It was a peer-to-peer
DC++. Yeah,
thing.
Direct Connect. Fuck.
Yeah.
You are taking me
back in the day. And he was like, hey, yeah, no problem. There's a private hub that I'm a part of.
Yep.
I can get you an invite and we can get you in there.
So shady.
I went in there and oh my God, there was just like, there's probably about 100 people maybe.
Yeah.
But they had thousands of documentaries,
Yeah.
podcasts, radio recordings, PDFs, doc files, just everything you wanted. It was all over the place.
That's so interesting.
And I was just downloading loads of crap and just kept consuming more and more and more. And just like felt like I had opened up to this whole new world I hadn't heard of.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a parallel universe.
No.
Yeah.
Not that all of what I was coming across I felt was true,
Yeah.
but it was just all right there. And where do we go from there, man? Because eventually I do start to like kind of believe the usual sort of every terror attack is a ritual.
Yeah. Oh, ritual. I'd go false
doing
flag.
this for Satan.
Wow. Fuck,
all that type
that's
of thing.
very deep.
You know?
I mean, like I did on the morning of 9/11, I came to school. I was about 15. I was in year 10. And I basically didn't really know what to think, but I knew that I didn't trust the narrative. And I was watching, because the news was on TV all day and all that sort of stuff. And I came to school, and my original thing, because I was very anti-American, for much less interesting and nuanced reasons than you had, and more just because I was a little shit. I just basically was just like, fucking Americans, they've had this fucking coming for years. It's going to be one of like 10 different people because let's face it, they've pissed off the entire world, with all these fucking, bombings and things like that, and fucking with South America and fucking with Cuba and blah, blah, blah. Like they brought this upon themselves. It's their own fault, blah, blah, blah. And my mate Isaac, he's American by birth. And he was just a bit like, mate, I can't be near you right now. And we're very good friends, like best mates. And he's like, mate, I can't be near you, like this is too much. You've gone a little bit over the line. And of course, my response to that was, well, fuck you then, suck my dick. Just looking back, I just cringe so hard. It's my reaction to it, people died, but when you get sort of peeled into this sort of political sphere, very opposite to your situation where everything was seriously like there was trauma in there, but it was also based on empathy and humanity. Mine was ultra political and devoid of humanity. These people who were jumping out of a skyscraper were to me just like pawns in a game. And that, oh, man, looking back, and I was like, fuck, was it the Palestinians? Was it the Middle East? Who was it? What's going on? I thought it was Palestinians at first, and I got really, really charged up about that. I was just throwing theories into the air, and I'm talking like, by hour, I'm just sort of like, basically spitting shit to myself. And then eventually the sort of narrative landed, and I'm like, fucking bullshit, and then I was looking for a reason to not believe it. I'm looking for something, and then I eventually found it. And that's the thing I talk about a lot these days, which I've sort of discovered through modern conspiracy theories, is an addiction to counter narratives and the need for there to be something that is not the mainstream line, because the mainstream line has to be wrong because it is the mainstream line. Yeah,
you were just 15 though at the time,
like I was a kid.
You didn't really know what was going on.
Well, that's it.
I was 22.
Yeah.
I was 22. I was staying with my mum. I always thought this was important, right? But it's just coincidences and all that. But later I would come to think this was a monumentous day.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the day that I got my PC that I had bought like off of my own money to start music production.
Ah, nice.
And doing my rapping and everything. So it's like that day, like my music career was born.
Yeah.
But it was also when that happened.
Yeah.
When 9/11 happens, right? So my mum comes up and knocks on the door while I'm putting my PC together. And she's like, oh my God, have you seen what's happened? I was like, no, what? She's like, something's happened to the World Trade Center. So I came down and had a look, and obviously one building, the smoke's coming out, and we're sat there going, God, what happened?
Yeah.
Was it a pilot? Was he drunk?
Yeah.
Like, you're thinking all these things. You're not even thinking that it's a terrorist attack at all.
Because you don't know.
And like,
no one
as
knew.
we're sat chatting, talking about it, trying to figure out what happened, we see the second plane come in.
Yeah.
We watch it hit, and we're like,
That was so hectic.
was that a replay of what happened? No, that's the other one. The other one is still on. Oh my God, this is live.
Yeah.
Holy this is intentional. This is intentional.
Yeah.
My mum's like, oh my God, someone's planned to do this. And she went, who would do such a thing? And I just looked straight at her and went, Osama bin Laden.
What?
Before the news even said it.
Interesting.
And she's like, who's that? I was like, oh, he's a terrorist who's in Afghanistan. Basically, he bombed the USS Cole 6 months ago. And 2 years and a year or so before that, he bombed 2 embassies in Africa.
Wow.
He's had it in for these guys, for America, for ages. I'm pretty sure he's sort of connected to the 1993 World Trade Center bombing.
Interesting.
And she's like, oh, really? I said, yeah, so this has definitely got to be him.
Wow.
You know, and I knew at the time that it was him because I was interested in geopolitics. I was interested in Islamic terrorism and terrorism all around the world.
Interesting.
Again, because of my background of growing up in the military, we were always made to be aware of terrorist threats.
Interesting.
We had a threat level on the base, like, every day before you went in.
Of course.
There was like a big sign that said how high the terrorist level was.
Yeah.
Our base got attacked by left-wing terrorists.
Interesting.
They honeypotted a man. They killed him.
Wow.
They took his ID. They took his car, and they drove the car onto the base.
Shit.
And they blew it up and killed, I think, 1 or 2 airmen when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I heard the fucking bomb blast from like 3 miles away.
Jesus.
Like, we all heard it, and it was just like, so it's something that's always been there. So I've always like really kept a keen eye on that.
Yeah, full on. That's so interesting.
So it's kind of weird that I kind of fell into the conspiracy stuff. But when they were able to talk about like Osama receiving CIA money and all this sort of stuff, then it all kind of started to make sense to me. I was like, oh, right.
Yeah, you start getting
There's
answers.
a whole hidden picture that I wasn't seeing.
Yeah. And sometimes there aren't answers,
But
but you were getting answers, and that felt good. But it makes sense. You know, like, that's really, it's very fucking interesting. Like, with the 9/11 in Australia, on the flip side of that, so the way I found out about 9/11 was because I got up and I went to the bathroom, and Dad had a little TV in his room, and it was on, and the news was on, and I think he was asleep. And I'm like, why the fuck are you watching the news at like 7 a.m.? What the fuck are you doing? And so I sort of went in there. I was like, oh, something funky's happening because that tower is smoking. But I think at this point, both planes had gone in there. I think Tower 7 hadn't fallen yet, blah, blah, blah. But it was much further along because we had that. I don't actually know what the time was, but it was sometime sort of like, 3 a.m. sort of stuff. So I think very few people in Australia would have actually seen it live like you did, and had those moments of like, fuck, what's happening? Holy shit, oh, that happened type stuff. But yeah, it was a very fucking interesting morning, but it's fascinating.
I was awake for like the next week.
Yeah.
For the whole next week. I was just watching TV the whole time, 24/7, just watching it, waiting for new developments.
Yep. Great for ratings.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that I thought we should do today, which is basically what I'm going to steal from Dan Schreiber is the batshit list. He's got a new podcast out, We Could Be Weirdos, and he gets his guests and he brings out a list of things that they may or may not believe in and goes through it with them. He recently did it with Dan Aykroyd, which is amazing. And basically, Dan Aykroyd believed in fucking everything because he's totally nuts. And great. I love that he's nuts. I think he's a beautiful kind of nuts, not like a vicious, venomous, awful kind of nuts. But I figure that we'll start off going back in time and let's look at JFK. What did you think about JFK? Like, did you think about JFK much? Did you look into JFK much?
Mate, I looked into it in many, many different ways. That's the thing with this is I'm going to be able to like tell you like 2 or 3 different beliefs that I held over the 15 years.
Yep. And that's what I'm here for, man.
Because it did swap and change. Obviously, beforehand, before I fell down the rabbit hole, I thought, JFK was killed by someone on the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald, we watched the movie, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of a given.
Yeah.
You know? And then I think the most popular theory that I gelled with was the William Cooper theory of it being the driver.
Yeah, okay, that's
when the
interesting.
driver like reaches behind his, turns behind his shoulder.
Oh, wow.
And you can see like his hand go like that.
I
And
haven't
it
even
looks
heard
like
of
there's
that.
a gun there. And just as he like goes like that, JFK's like head goes back.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
I've debunked it now. I know what is going on
Yeah, okay.
at that point, but
Yeah.
I didn't. But that was the seller for me for a long time. Also, that it was a part of a ritual.
Yeah.
Because it happens in Dealey Plaza, and the road is laid out like a pyramid with the capstone missing.
For fuck's sake.
And you can blame David Icke for that one, because that is in The Biggest Secret by David Icke.
Okay, well done him.
And that's where I start coming into the ritualistic elements of everything.
Man, that's so much more cool.
I still don't know what happened.
Well,
I gotta say, I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
like,
I'm like that too.
We got to do a deep dive on it.
Yeah, okay. I'd love that.
You know, we do have to figure that one out,
Mm.
because I know Neil. I'm pretty sure Neil thinks it was the mafia,
The mafia.
and that there was a person in the manhole or something in the sewers.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Because
Yeah.
there's the cooked side of, like, you know,
I don't know.
he was going to take on the Federal Reserve, apparently. And the Federal Reserve decided, like, you know, you can't do that. But that sort of sounds like bullshit. I don't know. I remember that being the sort of basis for me.
Ooh. I remember another one. Sorry.
Oh, good. No, good. Give
And that's
me.
that George Bush Senior.
Yeah.
Was in charge of the operation that day.
Okay. Was he? So he was working in the sort of CIA or
because he was CIA. Yeah.
at that time. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
God, he had a long fucking career.
And that job got him the presidency of CIA or whatever it's called, the head of that.
Okay, interesting.
Because there's a documentary like. I hate to drop names of all these things, but hey, go research it, figure it out, go listen to it.
Yeah, sure.
The Bush JFK connection, I think it's called.
Yeah, that rings a bell, actually. Interesting.
Yeah, and it was fascinating to me. I was like, yeah, I think Bush did this.
Yeah.
Bush is part of it, because like,
well,
at the end of the day, I did think that these were all
they made the links.
All in on it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. Ends up being the thing of like it's all in on it. You almost got to like save some space for them. It's like, yes, I've saved a seat for Hillary Clinton over here, and I've got a seat for George Soros over here because, you know, Klaus Schwab's got to sit in front because you got to get the whole gang involved. Now Fauci's involved in goddamn well fucking everything. Neil, I never really got too much into JFK Jr. sort of thing. Bill Hicks was one of the things that sort of pushed me toward the sort of pilling that, you know, sort of back and to the left.
Back and to the left.
And like, you know, and there were those, you know, some 3-minute videos of Bill Hicks that you'd watch back on your shitty internet back in the day. And Bill Hicks was brilliant. And look, like you say, like we still don't really know what happened as such. I think it's gross how RFK Jr. is using this whole my uncle shit. I'm trying to basically use this as a weapon against the US establishment. Not that the US establishment is exactly a noble fucking outfit, but the cynical way that he's using it to push a right-wing anti-government agenda under the guise of being a Kennedy Democrat. I mean, fuck you, man. Do you think your uncle really wanted you to be using his name like this? I'm just going to say no. I'm just going to say no, champion. So, fuck RFK Jr.
I'll say no.
You know, he can eat shit.
Yep.
Now, not too far around the corner is the classic moon landing. Did it happen?
Oh, yeah.
Did we land on the moon? Probably. Probably. My mate Isaac thinks we didn't.
Where did you go with it, though? Where did you go with it?
I never really bothered. It was a similar thing with JFK, and I think it was a lot to do with the sort of like the timing of my experience is the fact that the older stuff was more like it was sort of like a boring black and white movie to me. The whole idea that Stanley Kubrick was producing something and the flag and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I didn't believe that that they landed on the moon. And I didn't really bother to find out why. But one of the things that I find incredibly funny about this, and mentioning Dan Schreiber, he's a big fan of Buzz Aldrin. I think he's met him a couple of times now. And I think he even interviewed him at one point. Either way, Buzz Aldrin being a sort of big astronaut / military type guy, people will come up and be like, you didn't land on the moon. And he's just like, I'm going to punch you in the face now. Like he punches people who like challenge him going on the moon. I find that to be really funny because he's like, you know what? I can't argue with you. You're pilled. There's no point in engaging with you constructively. I'm just going to hit you, which violence isn't the answer. But when it comes to Buzz Aldrin, I find it really, really funny. And I think he's continued to do it into like his 80s and 90s. It's just like,
I find it funny now. I find it funny now. I didn't find it funny as a truther.
really
I
interesting.
thought, see, he's been pushed.
Yeah.
He's been pushed to the edge. He's been triggered. He can't hold it. He can't hold his cool.
Yeah.
Because he obviously didn't.
Well,
You know,
it's a good narrative.
That's kind of,
Yeah. I would double down with that.
it's always a twist of it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, what did
Yeah.
you think about the moon landing? I'm guessing you got a few PDFs on this from
Yeah.
your direct connect group.
We did all the usual, like you said, the flags and the crosshairs on the photos
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff. But I used to kind of think, hey, look, don't even need to go that far, mate. We can't get past the Van Allen belt. What are you on about?
Yeah,
we can't get
that
past
thing,
the
the
radiation.
radiation
So
thing,
fuck
yeah.
it. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, that's in the
You know, so
documentaries.
I did think it was. I did all believe like it's just garbage, and then the Kubrick thing came along.
Yeah.
And I was so enthralled by symbolism and
Yep.
hidden messages in all this stuff. That's all. I spent most of my time doing that.
That is so
all the
funny.
time. So when someone came along with the Shining thing and showing, you know, the kid just getting up off the floor and walking that many steps to the door, and I was just like, yeah,
It's Kubrick.
he's gone. He's onto it. He's onto it. And then I just went through all of the Jay Widener research and was like, yeah, dude's got it.
Yeah.
He knows.
He sussed it out.
It was Kubrick. Kubrick is telling us that that's what he did.
Interesting.
And that's really where I was.
Yeah.
Kind of like you, didn't have to put too much thought into it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Is it kind of a given?
Yeah, and it's low consequence as well. Like, you know, harking back to the idea of like, you know, going to war with Iraq and the sort of 9/11 flashpoint type thing, which is where I really sort of started being like paying more attention to this sort of stuff. It did have those sort of real world consequences, and that's the thing with the QAnon conspiracy theory now being participatory. But that's happening in real time. Whereas before with 9/11, it was always a sort of like a general sort of rear view mirror thing where like the Iraq will be happening, you'd be like, I think this is pretty sus. And then you'd look back and you'd be like, okay, so this money went to Halliburton and this happened here and this happened here and these people were involved. Whereas of course with QAnon, you've got some asshole being like, I know what's happening next and, you know, and we can prevent it. We can interfere with this and blah, 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 which is fucking terrible and fucking dangerous. Bad. I'm so glad that didn't exist when I was a kid. My God, I'd be in prison. So let's move on to what is now a hot topic, but in the rear view mirror, Area 51, Roswell and aliens as a general concept. Little Green Men. How'd you go with that?
Ooh, God, where do we start with this one?
Oh man!
All right,
You are unelectable after this podcast.
I've mate. just go look at my X feed,
Oh no!
and and I'm unelectable.
Oh man, that sounds fucked.
Roswell.
Yeah.
let's go there,
let's
shall
head to
we?
New Mexico.
Roswell.
Pitch a tent.
I never thought that this alien government sort of narrative was a thing.
Okay.
That, you know, aliens came here at some point, crashed,
Yep.
and we got their technology or anything like
Yeah,
that.
the thing they're doing now.
Because I believed in ancient aliens.
You went old school. Nice.
So those fuckers have been around for 6,000 years.
Of course.
They didn't just turn up in the 40s.
No.
You know what I mean? So that's what I thought.
That's more believable, to be honest. I mean, like, that sounds like it's got more substance to it than fucking little green men in Roswell nicking their little space lasers.
Eventually I became religious, and they were no longer aliens, and they were fallen angels.
Oh,
And
cool. That's fun.
the Greys were demons, and the reptilians were seraphim.
Okay.
And basically all the alien
Races?
races were all part of
Pleiadians and all
Yeah.
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
So they're all part of the different the fallen angels that are demons, or the jinn
Nice. Okay.
that were here. Basically, that's where I sort of
Did you ever think,
that's where I
were
landed.
you ever a starseed? Did you go that far?
No,
I think most people say they're starseeds
I did
and
look into
narcissists.
quite a bit of stuff. Yeah, I had a look at quite a lot of that stuff. During 2003 to 2008, I went everywhere.
Yeah.
I looked everywhere. I went to mosques. I went to
What?
churches. I went to all different types of churches, like
Man.
in Peterborough, where I used to live. And I'd stop and speak to Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons on the streets. I would talk to
Interesting.
anyone and everyone that had some sort of idea either about the angels
Yeah.
or what their version of Jesus was.
Interesting.
Like, these are things that really spoke to me.
Wow.
I went quite all over the place, and that's kind of where I started to think that a lot of these things were basically interdimensional,
Yeah, okay.
if you could say it in that sort of way.
So, yeah, less about moons and planets.
And not actually,
Yeah.
not actual aliens.
Interesting. You like one up the alien theory and just like went, nah, not enough. No, I need this to be more deranged and cooked.
Absolutely.
That's great. How do you stand with the religion now? Are you still a believer?
I am. I'm still a believer, but I'm not a extremist as I was.
Yeah, okay.
I think like my problem is that I started to feed into religious extremism, essentially, like the belief that a religious extremists have.
Yeah.
They've taken it way too far. The fundamentalists, all that sort of thing. And I even looked into like young Earth creationism for a while.
Yeah, wow.
You know, and just like really sat back and listened and tried to see if that worked.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I'm still Christian.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't like think that, you know, everyone who isn't a Christian is fucked. Like, I don't think anything like that. I don't look at the Bible as the inerrant word of God. I look at it as 66 books written by 40 different authors, all expressing their different view or experience or whatever poetry about what they class as the divine. So I don't really look at it like that anymore. I have like this personal relationship with what I call the divine, and the journey, like looking for the divine. Like I found my path through the wisdom of Jesus.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that's kind of why I call myself Christian, and
and
like I said, I don't feel like I think everyone's going to the good place, essentially. Unless you're terrible, and then you just will cease to exist. That's my personal belief. Like I don't believe in a hell
type thing. Yeah.
Don't believe in any of that kind of thing. I think you just poof gone.
Okay, cool. You don't get to have an afterlife, which is that's legit. And like, you know, when it comes
it took a while to get to there, mate. It took a while to get to there, and getting to there helped me stop believing in the Antichrist, stop believing that Lucifer was like important or running this world, stop me believing in the sacrifices, all that kind of stuff, because I was just like, actually, like he doesn't run this world.
No,
like humans are here to run this world. Like, he doesn't. So,
and in the image of, and that's
it really pulled me away from the extremist conspiracy stuff.
Interesting.
By learning these different things: no hell, no Antichrist, no rapture. None of these things are actually happening. They're a twisted version of what is even in the text. And it's all really new. It's all stuff that's been coming out for like not even 100 years. A lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it's just people implanting their ideas in things, and basically, you know, and that's blasphemy in itself. But yeah, like, you know, my idea of Jesus, I've got that sort of agnostic, atheistic thing where, like, you know, basically I've done enough philosophy classes to know that it's very arrogant to say that you know there isn't a God, and that's what atheism is, saying I know there's no God. Well, no, you fucking don't. But I'm an agnostic who leans toward the idea that there is nothing, blah, 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 you know, a bit nihilistic. But when it comes to Jesus, whether Jesus walked the earth or not, Jesus as a concept has been really bastardized, and the sort of sandal-wearing socialist Jesus that I picture and consider to be all welcoming, all loving, you know, accepts everyone for who they are. It's crazy to look at modern Christianity and see that somehow they took that guy and went, okay, yeah, but let's make him homophobic. Huh? What? What? No, wrong turn. No, turn the car off, get out, go to a hotel and have a sleep, because you're drunk. It's not working for you, mate. So yeah, that's my very basic take.
And let's make him white.
Yeah, but like, you know, your journey was way more involved than mine. Shit, I got an exemption from scripture when we were in school. I just got my parents to write me a note. But it wasn't necessarily, I was definitely very edgy and like, you know, fuck religion when I was younger. I'm much more tolerant now, mostly from my philosophy teacher, to be honest. Kerry Sanders, amazing woman. She taught me religious sort of empathy, which is really cool. But yeah, I got an exemption just because you got to hang out in the library and chat with your mates. And I just thought that was cool. I could get out of class. And and I asked out one of the girls in the group. Like, it was fucking great. But in year 6, like, what is asking someone out? Like, we didn't even kiss. Whatever. I was like fucking 12. Anyway, massive sidebar. Let's move on to anti-vaccine sentiment. Were you vaccinated as a child? I can say quite proudly I was not, because my mum thought that vaccines were poison. I just didn't get jabbed.
And that's why that's why you caught polio?
I probably should have. Like, I never got measles, but measles did exist back then. Like, they had German measles and shit.
Yeah.
I was never vaccinated for it, though.
Yeah.
I got a blood test because I wasn't actually sure, and I couldn't really ask my mum because we're not on exactly great terms these days. So I basically went to the doctor and he did a blood test because he's like, dude, measles is coming back. Are you vaccinated? I'm like, I don't think I am. And he gives a blood test. He's like, no, you're not. I don't think you've ever had a jab. So, could you do that, please? I'm like, yeah, sure. And like, not because I'm anti-vax, because I'm useless. I only got like 2 of the 3 or whatever. And I just didn't, I forgot to go back.
You got measles, mumps, but no rubella.
Yeah, it's a bit like that. Like, I don't know what the impact of that is, but I sort of ticked a box and sort of moved on. But I'll just avoid people that look like they have measles. I don't know what that really means, though. But yeah, I mean, like, being around military bases and stuff, wouldn't jabs have been mandatory?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I've got today. Like, when I'm thinking about like people who work for the government, and that, like, that's where mandates come in.
Yeah.
Like, that you have to be vaccinated and mandated, that vaccines need to be mandated in government jobs. Like, that's how it is.
Yeah.
That's how I've grown up.
Yeah.
It's probably why I don't have a problem with IDs either.
Yeah,
Like,
because you've always
got
had
no problem with an ID because I've carried one all my life.
Yeah.
Like, well, they're handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we had vaccination, and then that period where, like, we were abandoned in Germany, where my first stepdad left, and before we met my second stepdad, I was enrolled into German school.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And again, their healthcare was amazing.
Yep.
And yeah, you got everything that you needed.
Just got jabbed.
Yeah, just take it.
I got exemptions. People like lined up for the tetanus shot. I think this was like maybe like sort of year 10 or year 11. So around that sort of September 11 time when I started really getting pilled. And not only did I get an exemption, well, I didn't get an exemption. I didn't come with a permission slip. I just didn't get it signed. I don't even think I told my parents about it. And basically I stood there and I taunted people getting vaccinated. And one person got like a lump in their arm, like a tennis ball, kid named Tom Howes, who's now a cop. He had this big lump in his arm, and I was like, look at that fuckwit. Look, see, they put poison in your arm and it gets swelled up. What did you expect to happen, mate? And it's like, what a cunt. I mean, I'm so lucky that some of these people still talk to me because, like, I was such a prick. But imagine being a fucking little teenager. Imagine being a teacher and watching this squeaky little fucking kid, pimply-faced fucking dick shit, who just thinks he's an adult, going, oh, you're getting injected with poison. You're all just shills for big pharma. You're just here to make drug companies money. They're all, you're just getting poisoned by the government. And you just be like, shut up, kids. I mean, someone should.
Yeah, she probably blamed your mum.
Well, my mum very much instilled these ideas in me. And this was the thing. Like, basically, the explanation for anti-vaccine sentiment was simple. It's a moneymaker, which is not.
Yeah.
Of course, vaccines don't make money. Treatments do. And that's my other sort of big pharma thing that we'll sort of segue into. But it was definitely the idea of, it's a very basic thing. I didn't really need to know the ins and outs of why and what. I didn't read range of information. It was basically just big pharma are very suspect and they're jabbing kids at school to basically just sell product. And that was all there was to it. Polio, measles, all the intricate parts of that, really just no. But even into my 20s, I was like, I'm not fucking jabbing poison into my fucking arm. What are you, crazy? That's just fucking big pharma making money. And like, I don't know what the fuck's in that. Like, and it's just no basis. It wasn't smart analysis. It wasn't clever critique. It was just big pharma's bad and I don't trust it. Cool. Great work.
It wasn't being smart.
No, it wasn't.
It was being a smart ass.
Yes, it was. It 100% was. And then eventually, with the whole sort of like, the measles thing, I also got, I stabbed myself in the hand and I got a DTaP, which is like, the diphtheria, tetanus and pertussis one. And it was like the first one I'd ever had. And they're like, have you had a tetanus shot? I'm like, no. They're like, oh, when was your last one? I'm like, never, ever. give me one. I stabbed myself with a dirty knife. Please just do whatever you got to do. But it wasn't necessarily out of the fact that I was still anti-vaccine. I just hadn't had the opportunity. But in my early 20s, the idea of getting a DTaP, I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, do you want me to be autistic? Because I don't really want to be autistic. So that'd be cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I used to think it was going to, as part of the depopulation plan.
Yep. Yeah, that's a classic.
Like, I thought it was.
We like that one.
I did think, like, we talk about it in the chemtrails episode that's coming up. Like, I used to think that there was a soft kill depopulation plan.
Yep.
And it was being put in the food, it was the chemtrails, it was the vaccines, it was everything kind of around us. And the more you consumed of these things, the quicker you'll die.
Yep. Everything
And
but cigarettes.
That's how everyone else, like even the elites, can be exposed to this because they're only taking in the chemtrails or something, but they're not doing the fluoride in the water. They're not taking the vaccines, not doing
drinking the San
the other
Pellegrino
combination of stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's why I did think, and I also did think one day they're going to vaccinate the entire globe and they're going to put microchips in.
Well,
I did think that that's what was going to happen.
You were leading up to a perfect
and there
point.
I am stat.
Here we are. Well, my one's buzzing. We had some computer issues earlier, and I had some computer issues last night with the Zoom with the patrons for the the conditional release program. Fuck me. And it's great because Soz from Tinfoil Tales, which is sort of like a partner podcast of ours, she was saying, "Oh, well, you're over the target." And that's what they think. If there's any kind of technical issues or anything like that, they're just like, oh, fuck, they're censoring us. But they also think that they've got fucking Bluetooth chips in their arms. I guess they must be listening to things. So it's like, oh, shit, my microchip just said to the government that I was talking about something that's too true. And, and they've like cut my internet off. It's like, yeah, all right, mate, good work. So anyway, that's a massive detour. Let's hit up Big Pharma, one of my favorites. It's a classic, it's like the Beatles of conspiracy theories to me. It's really ties the room together. Some really good albums, a few weird ones, but generally speaking, if you're going to be a conspiracy theorist, you've got to distrust Big Pharma. Even if you've like had an experience with Big Pharma that's like literally saved your life, you still have to hate Big Pharma in a really weird and irrational kind of sense.
I think it's kind of like when you have to hate major record labels.
Yeah. Because they are bastards.
It's like that kind of thing. It's like I like the music.
Yeah.
But like, major record labels they destroy the true art.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the pharma. They can destroy
it's a very
like
good
our
analogy.
health.
Yeah. And like, the record labels basically, they'll push as much sort of saccharine candy type stuff to the masses to placate us all, blah, 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 and make as much money as possible. I never really got into the idea that, the record companies were intentionally trying to sort of fuck with us through what they release, which is this sort of like Disney bent that's happening now, this woke Disney sort of weird protest shit. Like Disney's ever been a good company. I mean, like they are not your friend.
I know, right?
But yeah, like with Big Pharma, I think it's interesting insofar as the entry for me is anti-capitalism. I'm still left of center, but I was like, no, not necessarily like, sort of communist because I wasn't smart enough to be communist because I didn't really understand the concepts behind it. But I just was anti-capitalism and I wasn't quite sure how to articulate that. And then I got a degree in political economy and I understood why capitalism was a little bit flawed. And that took me several years and I have now a cool diploma to show for that. But generally speaking, the Big Pharma, like I say, with like the vaccines and things, it was about profit. And the idea that what they'll do is they'll get together in a big room and they'll say, oh, we've got a cure for cancer. Oh, but we have a treatment for cancer. Well, we'll shelve the cure for cancer and we'll put out the treatment because the cure for cancer is going to be a one-off thing, like a vaccine, ironically, which in my head was a big moneymaker. I mean, come on, you can see how this like falls apart immediately. But the treatment is going to make more money. And look, there's arguments for and against this because I do think that there is a real problem with profit motives and pharmaceutical care. But one of the interesting things, especially around vaccines, is that a lot of the stuff that Big Pharma rely on is university research. And if you think that universities are covering up cures for profit, then you've got fucking rocks in your head.
Yeah, totally.
So where did you go with your PDFs and direct connect on Big Pharma? Where did you go? Like, did you get religious with that as well? Like, Big Pharma's run by fucking Satan, or how far did you go with that?
Everything was run by these people. Everything, every single thing was run by these people, especially pharmaceuticals. Like at the end of the day, what's the symbol? What's the symbol for pharmacies and everything? A snake wrapped around
with
the
the
staff. You
and
know
the
what I mean?
snake.
Like,
Yeah.
that's been them
Yeah.
from day one, like pumping us full of
100%.
stuff that causes dis-ease in our bodies. Yeah.
You sound like Pete Evans.
Thanks again to David Icke for that one.
100%. Oh yeah, that's a glanger. I like it. Well done, Dave.
Yeah, but that was it. It's like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a given. To when you're a conspiracist, certain things are just a given.
Yeah.
Of course, pharmaceuticals are fucking us over. Yeah, of course, the CCTVs are watching us. Yeah, of course, this is tracking us. Of course, it's just a very much, of course, it's a truthism.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and it really is. It's a real sort of bread and butter of the whole general thing. But it's so funny, like I say, when it comes to big pharma, it's like, big pharma are evil until they save your life, and then they're evil again once you get back on the thing. You're like, you guys aren't so bad. No, you are bad.
I find it all really funny about Pfizer, to be honest, because loads of these people were taking blue dick pills.
Oh yeah,
before the jab, and they were counting on it.
Yeah,
I've got a great clip. Right, there's a guy over here. I can't even remember his name. Peter something. He runs a thing called New Culture Forum out of 55 Tufton Street. It's one of these stupid fucking right wing oil conservative think
tanks.
Right. Yeah. He's got a video of like the greatest achievements of British companies or British people, or the best British achievements.
Okay.
and he's like listing them all off and all that, and like towards the end he goes, Viagra. And I'm just looking sick. I was laughing at that. I was laughing at it before the pandemic, obviously. Now obviously he hates Pfizer.
Of course,
that
except for
you,
the
mate.
Pills. Yeah. That's very, very good.
And you all trusted him with your dick, but you don't trust him with your life.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And the lives of others as well, which is the other great part. And having that thing where that Rob Bruce guy in the European Parliament putting it to Pfizer exec about transmission, and they basically said, we didn't test for transmission, which apparently means that it doesn't lower transmission. And like rational people believe this because basically they buy the line that someone admitted that it doesn't interfere with transmission, and because people who are vaccinated were getting the disease, then apparently it doesn't lower transmission, which is insane. Of course it fucking lowers transmission. It lowers your chance of getting it, and it lowers the severity, and it lowers the duration. That all translates to lower transmission. It's just that scientific rigor, which is one of the things that anti-vaxxers both detest and also cry for when it's convenient, means that a transmission test is really expensive and really hard to do. And because pharmaceutical companies are for profit, and all their vaccines were approved without it, they haven't had to do it. And if you think a fucking a pharmaceutical company is going to spend money they don't have to spend, they are not going to spend money if they don't have to. That's just capitalism, bro. Yep. So, and look, I don't
capitalism, not conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's fucking ridiculous. I mean, when it comes to big pharma, I can see why Americans be pilled on this, because if you watch American television, it's just constant fucking ads for pharmaceuticals. And they're so cool. And they've got the side effects list at the end, which they should have. And it's a regulatory thing. And, they say it really quickly. And you'll have like old people holding hands walking down a beach and be like, may cause, shitting blood and kidney failure and, death to everyone around you and spontaneous combustion. And they're like, dancing in a field and riding fucking horses. But I can see why you'd be very skeptical of something like that. But then again, they love to go back to things like the Tuskegee experiment, which was really fucked up, and that was more of a US government trick. Thalidomide was bad. I mean, thalidomide was really bad.
Oh yeah, people
were born disfigured, and that's it. I mean, your life sucks. And what was it, morning sickness?
But then they changed it.
Well,
they didn't know. They didn't know that's what was going to happen, and then that's what happened. And they're like, we're going to change this. We don't want to do this. That's what kind of happens. Not with the Tuskegee experiment, obviously. That's a completely fucking different thing. Yeah. But this is something that annoys me, right? Conspiracy theorists always bring up Tuskegee experiment, and there was no conspiracy theory about it. Yeah. So this is my point. You got to have a conspiracy theory about a thing, then that is proven to be correct. There was no conspiracy theories about Tuskegee, and most of the time they get it wrong. They don't even know what actually happened there.
Yeah. It's just a blanket.
A lot of the time they go, they gave everybody syphilis. No, they didn't.
No, they were control
Like they
groups.
just they gave some, but they also just brought people who had it all in there and was just like, let's see what it's like
See what
if it
happens.
runs wild.
Yeah.
Let's not treat it.
Yeah.
You know, and it was
So bad.
it was terrible. Obviously, it's fucked what they did.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, this is again people trying to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
and
and
use
at
it,
the end of
use
the
it for
day,
effect.
people back then were bastards to black people.
Yeah, 100%.
Total fucking bastards to black
Absolute-
people.
yeah.
Like some of them still are today.
And it's funny with some of these guys who speak of this experiment with this sort of like, you know, oh, how horrible it was. And I'm like, mate, but you're like a Nazi. Like, you want to put these people in camps and kill them. So, like, you know, I'm sorry if I'm sort of doubting your anti-racism chops, but, like, you know,
Innit?
the swastika just really sort of seems like a dead giveaway that you don't actually care about these people. But anyway, whatever. So, yeah, like... So there are definitely, like, you know, these sort of these horrific things, thalidomide, Vioxx, Merck released, I think it was a painkiller that gave people heart attacks or something. There was a swine flu vax. There's a whole thing around that. There were a lot of, like, you know, sort of unintended side effects and stuff, and they rolled that out very quickly, very similar to the sort of COVID thing. And that's the thing with the thalidomide, like, you know, they withdrew it. They went fuck, but untold damage was caused. And they used that parallel to say, you know, but thalidomide, and it's like, yeah, but like you say, we learned things from that. And after that, they changed things because they went, oh, no, we can't let that happen again. But that's not convenient for the narrative. And what's scary about improving safety standards? There's nothing scary about that. We've got to keep the punters terrified. So
They also, you know, they pulled AstraZeneca.
yeah, exactly. And look, a handful of people
As
died.
soon as they found out, gone.
Yeah.
Like, so we're going to continue with the mRNA instead.
Yeah, which,
Like,
you know,
they
didn't kill
do
people.
act upon like bad shit happening. So,
And very
what
stringently
are you guys
as well.
talking about?
And it fucking sucks because some of the deaths that happened there, like, you know, young people who were just basically just robbed of their lives as a result of this, you know, sort of rushed vaccine. And fair enough. I mean, the outrage on that is fine. But conspiracy theorists can't just mourn the death of a handful of people and genuinely feel empathy for their you know, their loss. They have to make it about, no, 10 million people are dying and, oh, no, there's dead people in the street, but it's all covered up. No, a handful of people died, and that's still a tragedy. You're allowed to be sad about that. It doesn't have to be a fantastic high number of deaths to get your endorphins running so you can have your little fucking weird high horse moment. You can be sad about a few people dying. You're allowed to do that. Give yourself the space to care about fellow human beings, if you like, not just statistics.
100%.
But the other thing that I want to go to very quickly as a little thing, did you ever get into the germ theory, terrain theory territory? Disease?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all.
Interesting.
No, I didn't have to look into it that much, to be honest. Like, at the end of the day, mate, I'm not big on like biology science. I like space
okay.
science.
Yeah, that's
that
it.
was what I
that's
was always
fair.
kind of into.
Yeah,
But just
I
not
didn't
really
get into it either.
And lots of people like to talk about it, but I always kind of say, look, I'm not the science guy. I'm like the ex-conspiracy guy. Like, I'll talk about the crazy conspiracies around these things, but I'm not going to sit here and debate the scientific minutia with you. Like, there's experts here on all these social media sites. Go talk to them.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, terrain theory is pretty funny because, like, when it comes down to it, germs do cause disease, and the idea that they don't is hilarious. But I think I got like a little bit sort of side-pilled on that, but I didn't really articulate it well, which is basically that a lot of diseases weren't what we thought they were, and they were environmental, whether it be chemtrails or, you know, like I said, the depopulation program, various things that are coming into play, and then, you know, you say, oh, well, I've got this illness, but realistically you're sort of being poisoned. But I never really bothered to articulate it like a lot of people are doing now, basically saying, you know, germs don't cause disease, it's your environment. And I think it's just another way to basically sell crystals, to be honest. You know, it's just it ends up being a fucking sales pitch for an MLM
every time.
Yeah, it just ends. Yeah, there's always a money trail, and the irony of, like, you know, follow the money being such a big trope for conspiracy theorists, and yet they never follow the money. Follow the money, guys. They're fleecing you because you're rubes. Notice how all the crypto scammers go onto Telegram. Notice how all the crypto scammers are in the comment section of right-wing fucking threads. Yeah, that's not a coincidence. It's because you guys are easy fucking marks. Maybe you should, like, think about why that is, and maybe reconsider your political allegiances just as a result of the fact that if scammers think you're gullible, maybe you are. Just Just saying, if you've been singled out as a fucking easy mark. But the next one, chemtrails.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I had different views about this at different times.
Interesting.
So first, obviously, kind of go into the whole, they're spraying poisons on us.
Yep.
It's part of the soft kill. It's part of the depopulation plan.
Yep.
Part of the plans to subdue us, like fluoride.
Yep.
But then I kind of change a bit.
Okay.
And because I'm pretty cooked, as you would say. I thought that the chemtrails were in play with HARP.
Yeah, okay. So weather manipulation and shit.
And that basically they were kind of pumping out mind control.
Oh, that,
like
okay, yep.
Keep us all, again, subdued, but it
MK
was
Ultra,
through like
basically.
this. Yeah, but it was through like through the waves, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought, maybe that's a bit bullshit.
Oh, wow, too far.
Maybe that we don't really need all that.
Yeah, okay.
So it's to do with the it's to do with changing the weather.
Mm-hmm.
It's to do with geoengineering.
Yep.
Or
classic.
Me and my partner used to say, like, they used to just make it rain so that we'd be upset, so that we'd be depressed all the time.
So the Brits would be miserable. That's a good policy.
Yeah. That's what we went with.
What a bastard you'd have to be.
Because we'd watch chemtrails, like, come across the sky, and then we'd watch clouds form around them, and we could time it and be like, it's going to rain in an hour.
Yeah,
or whatever, and we'd see it every single time.
Pretty fucking safe bet to say it's going to rain in an hour in the UK. That's like, flip a coin.
Has it rained for half an hour yet? Nope, it's going to rain in an hour.
Yeah, that's it.
And then, I kind of thought to push it further with the weather manipulation and everything, that basically they were hoaxing climate change through this.
Yeah.
So all of the climate change stuff that we were seeing or whatever was actually them hoaxing it to sell us the climate change scam.
Yeah. Because there's so much money in it.
That was kind of towards the end. That's pretty much where I was kind of, I had left it before I now know, like, it's just contrails. It actually is contrails.
Yeah, it is. And the thing that's interesting, I find, and this is very anecdotal, but I've found that when I'm in the UK, I'm assuming this is also due to the fact that you just have like a lot more flights, coming in and out of London and places like that, Oxford, stuff like that. Just I've spent a fair bit of time over in England, and generally speaking, you guys have a shitload of contrails, and I'm guessing maybe the air is colder. I'm usually there in summer though, so maybe that theory is bullshit. I don't know. But what I can say is that if there's more flights or it's colder air or whatever, you guys have a shitload more contrails. So therefore, a lot more reasons to be terrified than we do here.
Yeah.
But of course, we'll have people in the Northern Rivers area, which is just sort of north of me, a traditional sort of cooked place. And they have the sort of contrails from flights going from further north down further south. And they'll just sort of fly over. And there'll be a few of them, but they'll have these big open skies, a couple of contrails there. In Sydney, very rarely look up and see a big old trail, every now and then. So one theory would also be that we're not being poisoned in Sydney because this is where the elites are. And they do it, sort of only to these sort of regional areas to sort of fuck with them. But being in London and sort of looking up and being like, wow, they are busy at work here. I can see where that sort of like that paranoia, because it's so tangible and visceral. You can look up and you can see it. And like you say, you can time your watch to it. Oh, it's going to rain because the contrails are there. It's like maybe in situations where there's more vapor in the air up there, the contrails might form more solidly. There might be a scientific explanation for this. But what is scientific? Fuck scientific explanations. I've got a theory and it's more fun. And it's easy. And
the thing is, like we said, we could watch it happen in front of our eyes.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
And well, you can't tell me that I'm wrong because I can fucking see it. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's right there. Come
Classic.
Sit with me for like 2 hours and let's watch this happen.
Yeah.
I'll show you this happens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's very convincing like that because, I saw it with my own eyes. It's just that what you saw with your own eyes was then tainted with this absurd narrative that you either made up or you heard or you read in a PDF that you got off Direct Connect or, whatever. But
Yeah.
one of the things that's interesting is the whole sort of cloud seeding thing. And for any listeners who don't know about cloud seeding, it does exist. It is real. It's a way of basically making clouds come down. So if you've got a cloudy sky and you've got thirsty plants and you want those clouds to not just blow over and rain yet again on a coastal town that doesn't fucking need it and will bitch about it, you can send up planes to put whatever the fuck they put up there, silver particles, I think it is, something like that. And the clouds will decide, oh, actually, no, I think this is a good place to come down. And it'll rain.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You can't make a flood
Kind
happen.
of just provokes
the
cloud.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is like those are done with like crop dusting planes.
Yeah.
Not with passenger jets.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And the fact that, of course, passenger jets have passengers on them. So, you know, where are the chemicals? I guess they're in the back. But yeah, like, you know, that is, it is definitely a thing. But like, you know, for example, I think in Australia, maybe like in Tasmania or somewhere, they had a flood and they had an inquiry into the fact that there was cloud seeding beforehand. And it was just incompetence. But even then, like, you know, the cloud seeding didn't have a material impact on the flood because generally speaking, if there's a flood, it's going to happen anyway. So your cloud seeding doesn't really add too many millimeters to the pile. You're already kind of fucked. But look, you know, when it comes down to it, with weather manipulation, I would kind of welcome it. Insofar as natural disasters are shit. No one's had their house flooded and gone, oh man, I'm so glad we didn't interfere with that. Oh, imagine if we interfered with that flood and we stopped it from happening. Man, my house would not be flooded. What a tragedy that would be. Oh man, the government really needs to keep the fuck out of weather. No, go ahead. If you want to stop a flood, be my fucking guest. But of course, nothing can be done altruistically. It always has to be nefarious. So
yeah, it has to be the other side, way around, doesn't it? It has to be that they, like, I thought the Sumatra tsunami was them.
Yeah, yeah.
It was HARP. Like they had caused the earthquake under the ocean, and
with a nuke, I think it was.
Yeah, well, I thought it was HARP.
Yeah, okay. I think the theory that was going around when it came to the Indonesian tsunami situation, which was very close to home here and like quite a big deal, and it was fucking awful. So many people died in Thailand, all over Asia.
It is mad, mate.
It was really bad, and that was meant to be an underground nuke that created the earthquake. That was what the general sort of vibe was.
I thought most of these things were Hurricane Katrina. Like most of the really big ones basically was them. They controlled it. They got the weather manipulation stuff. Like you said, they can't ever like stop a flood, can they? They have to cause them.
They have to cause it. Yeah,
it's always nefarious intent.
Yeah, it's very sad. Living in that world sucks. It's very stressful. Well, moving on to one of my absolute favorites: fluoride in the tap water.
Oh yeah. Definitely thought that was a thing.
Your tap water sucks.
Yeah.
Your tap water is so hard and awful. Sydney tap water, fucking incredible. So good. We don't have all that gummy calcium shit on our taps because we don't have lime and chud in the water. Our water kicks ass. So I can see why people in the UK might be a bit, you know, looking at their taps and being like, oh, well, that can't be good.
But we don't have fluoride.
Really? Boring.
Most counties in England do not have fluoride. Bristol water here, we don't have fluoride in the water.
Interesting.
And I didn't know that. I didn't know that when I was a truther. I thought it was in all the water, no matter what. I thought they were just putting it in everyone's water.
Yeah,
didn't even bother checking that. No, we don't actually do it in our country. It's American. It's a big American thing. But obviously, they always sold it as like Hitler put it in the concentration camps to subdue the prisoners there and da da da. It's a
neurotoxin.
And so that's what they're doing to us.
Yeah.
Which at the end of the day, fluoride isn't fluoridate isn't it?
Well, fluoride, basically like sodium fluoride, whatever it is, you don't want to have a lot of it because you will die. But the other thing that I find sort of suspect about it is that when it comes to fluoride in the water, and I believe we have it in New South Wales where I live and not in Queensland. I think there are some local areas, like you say with counties. I think some councils do it somehow. There's a whole legislative thing around it because it's all run by government law, basically, whether there's, you know, sort of mandates of fluoride or options of fluoride and blah, blah, blah. And to be honest, I haven't looked into it. We're doing this very off the cuff. It's not like a, you know, researched episode. But when it comes down to it...
you didn't do this disclaimer, actually.
Yeah, I was going to put a disclaimer at the top of the episode.
Now.
Basically, what we're saying here may very well not be true, because usually when we do podcasts, we research them meticulously and we read off something that has these facts in front of us to make sure we don't say things that are wrong. But I figured that we didn't really have to do that because we're actually probably mostly reporting on bullshit here. So if we're talking about conspiracy theories, A, we might get the conspiracy theories wrong, but we're talking about our experience. Fuck you. And B, we may get other things wrong because this hasn't been meticulously fact-checked. I'm sorry. Take this episode with a grain of salt. That is the disclaimer, because usually I'm so anal at fact-checking. I'll be listening back and editing an episode, and I'll go, hold on, and then I'll go and double-check it. I'm like, oh, fuck. No, I'm going to have to edit that bit out. That's not true. That was one of those things I said off the cuff and I was wrong about.
No, this is not a debunk. This is not a debunk episode. This is a conversation between two people who used to be down the rabbit hole and are now going to be joining together to do the debunk deep dives.
And try and basically save a few souls from spending a lot of money on bottled water when they really don't need to, because it's just not necessary. But yeah, like the fluoride thing, right? So topical treatment, like, you know, with toothpaste. I used to buy fluoride-free toothpaste because I was very fluoride pilled. And they have like sort of a herbal toothpaste you can get like on the bottom shelf at the aisle, twice the price, and tastes like shit. But it got to the point where, because I was also drinking a lot of bottled water, and I like sparkling water. I have a Soda Stream now. That's great. But, you know, I still do drink bottled water insofar as I love the crack of a fresh plastic bottle of sparkling water. And yes, that makes me bad for the environment, but fuck it, we have our guilty pleasures. But at the end of the day, topical treatment of fluoride is meant to be good. You put it on your teeth, it somehow soaks in, it does something toothy. I don't fucking know, I'm not a dentist. But when it comes to drinking fluoride, it seems like the jury's kind of out on whether it really does anything. And to be honest, people in Queensland, their teeth are fine, I think. I don't know. So you could do your own research on this and you can sort of look into it, listeners, because I don't really know whether the effect of fluoride is there. But I would say that I am semi-fluoride pilled still, not so far as it's nefarious, but more of just like a sort of bumbling tradition of incompetence insofar as they put fluoride in the water based on some sort of whim. Because like one of the theories is that fluoride is a byproduct of some sort of industry, and this is how they dispose of it in the tap water.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And it's so fucking vague. Like, what industry? Like, what? Like, why aren't they just like dumping it somewhere in like a, you know, like a lake, like any good capitalist would? So I don't know. Like, it's all really, really vague.
They got to get rid of it, so they're going to put like tiny little doses inside your water, and they're trying to get rid of all of this amount of it. That doesn't feel make efficient. Sense. Why don't?
Yeah.
No. Make it make sense.
Just bury it like a dog buries a bone. I don't anyway. But
put it in bombs, blow people up with it, do something.
Yeah, if it's so bad, you know, sort of, you know, spray it on, you know, enemy territory. You know, that's a whole nother story, I suppose. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I don't know whether fluoride in the water has a beneficial effect, and I don't know whether it's got a harmful effect. And I'm a bit jury's out on that one still. I shrug my shoulders on that one a bit. Just, I'm not there. But I do not think that it is a conspiracy by them. Probably triple parenthesis on that one, to dumb us down, make us placated, make us pliable, all that sort of stuff. That's fucking dumb.
Yeah.
That's just not, no. But I did believe that up until real fucking recent. Like, I'm talking just before the pandemic. When Liz, my partner, she's like, you know, did you believe that when we got together? I'm like, oh, there could be some overlap, just a little bit of overlap, not a lot, but like there could be some overlap to when I started just being like, you know what, maybe the problem was I started drinking tap water and I just stopped caring about the fluoride in the water because of the neurotoxin making me pliable and dopey. The next one is a fucking absolute corker for you and corker for me personally, actually, the 7/7 bombings. That surely that fucked you up.
Proper, mate. Proper. I was like, witnessing it in real time.
Yeah.
I was on the computer in the morning. I was on the David Icke forum.
Yeah.
Like it was 9:30 or something in the morning, I think, when it starts. Mm-hmm. And I was up at like 8 or 7 or whatever. And I was just doing my research, talking to my friends and all that sort of stuff. And I had the news on. I used to always have the news on anyway, just like to kind of
just
keep an eye on what they were up to. And then, power outage in London.
Yep.
The minute they said power outage in London, the forum started going mad.
Yeah.
And we're like, something is happening.
Something's up.
Something is happening. Everybody, pick a channel, pick a radio station, put it on in the background, and just mark down everything that you can.
Interesting.
And through that entire day, as it became known that it was a terrorist attack, we were taking down everything. We were recording the Peter Power interview. We got everything that became the conspiracy in that like first week, and all compiled it together as a group on the David Icke Forum.
Wow, like really,
because we were right there, man.
Very
I was
participatory.
right there because, like I said,
yeah,
9/11. You know, that was the U.S. government killing 3,000 of their citizens. This was London. This was them doing it here to our citizens, to my brothers and sisters.
Yep, 100%.
We are not going to let them get away with it. We're going to watch every fucking thing that happens, and we're going to expose them
and keep an eye on these motherfuckers.
Yeah,
that's it. How interesting. So that really was participatory for you.
Big time.
Very much so. How interesting. So the theory that I remember going around the traps initially, outside of the whole, like, you know, sort of mainstream narrative, was that there was a training exercise on at the same time, and they got these poor, hapless Muslim kids to go with these backpacks, and they were meant to be doing a training drill, but it turned out to be real. And when they realized that, like, the other bombs had gone off, they freaked out and, like, you know, tried to pull out and whatever. But the powers that be had the whole thing planned so well, and no whistleblowers or anything, you know. It's a great theory. I mean, so it's just a classic false flag.
That was my theory. That's exactly what I thought. What I thought.
Yeah, that's sort of what I went with.
Yeah, I thought that these kids had been set up. They were patsies.
Yep.
They'd been asked to go along with this training exercise. And like you said, the guy who ended up blowing up the bus, Hasib Hussein, I think his name was, like, he was the one who didn't get on a train and went to Burger King, allegedly, and tried to phone somebody, and then ended up getting on the bus and blowing himself up outside of Tavistock, the Tavistock Institute, on a bus that said "Terror, bold and brilliant," because it was it was an advertisement for the movie The Descent, which is a bunch of crazy, like a horror movie in the subway, in the underground.
Okay. Wow.
And it was like terror, bold and brilliant.
That is quite something.
Because I had it in a lyric. Let me try and find my lyrics, man. Let me try and find this. This will be fun.
Do it.
Pledge no allegiance to the Prime Minister's speeches. I'm waiting for the day that Shuri reaches for the Kleenex to dry her eyes, because she's heard the news that her hubby's died in a satanic ritual homicide. Found in the fens, not a garment in sight.
Ooh.
He was hog-tied with a silver knife lodged in his spine. Finally, she finds a taste of what it feels like, because Iraqi women living in this way every night. Imagine leaving your sister, mother, or wife on a hot July in a pitch black tunnel. You're dying on the tracks and breathing becomes a struggle. Meanwhile, the lies break out 10 feet above you. BBC News 24 reports a power outage has interrupted London's transport. I highly doubt it, yo. I've seen it before. Besides, I hear the carnage resonating through my core. It's Masonic law, totalitarian tiptoe. Order out of chaos, squeeze us tight, let us go. You give us a fright and then pretend to be a hero, but lift that facade, it's Emperor Nero, right? Compassion is zero, there's nothing left to talk about. This is war. AC told me I should knock you out. If I saw you out, I'd grab my sword, gilded by the word of the Lord, and I would sort you out, because Bin Laden did not blow up London. It was you, Tony. Tell the truth. It was Blair who gave the order, and MI5 conducted the slaughter.
Whoa. Wow.
They say that terrorism has got a place in Islam. I say they're brainwashing you and morally wrong. It may be true that some imams have placed their faith in hate, but why listen to what a snake has to say? Save your breath for the last days, because they've sold their souls and hence sealed their fate. They framed Sid, Shazad, Hasib, and Jermaine, and on Remembrance Day, they only read out 52 names. It's time for a change, and a change gonna come. You gunned an innocent man down when he did not run. 1 down, 3 to go, set the cover of the sun, but they print government lies without a question, and nobody seems to stress them when they mention how the terrorism bill grants 3 months detention, and they don't need a judge or any evidence, and that's why there's no justice for Sean Charles de Menendez.
Interest. Wow, there's so much in there. Damn. But
even back then, man, I was saying they framed Sid, Shazad, Hasib, and Jermaine, and on Remembrance Day only read out 52 names.
Yep. Yeah, because they were victims as well.
That's how I felt.
And there's a real anti-racist sort of sentiment under there, which I really quite liked. It's that thing of, like, you know, don't make this about fucking Muslims. It's about fucking Tony Blair and MI5. They're the snakes. It's not It's not this like, Sunni extremism. Sure, some of these guys are a bit fucking baked, but let's not make it about that. That was nice. I like that. There was a lot. There was a lot of messages in there. I'm trying to keep up with all the things. I'm like trying to like, because I'm like expanding them in my head. Yeah, look, when it came down to the day, one of the things I can really resonate with you on that is, as you said, like it's our brothers and sisters in London. Of course, I'm Australian, but I was in London at the time. And the way I found out about the power surge is because I was walking down toward the platform at King's Cross Station, and I was told by someone walking up. I was walking down into the station, like it's like a driveway type thing, and some lady came out going, power surge, trains are out. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I suppose I better get a bus. And that was the sort of extent of my experience. Not having any idea of the fact there was a fucking train that had just blown up on the line. And I just went, and I got a bus. And there was a lot of people getting buses, but I managed to just jump on a bus. What I was doing is I was going to Victoria Station to go to Oxford. And I had no idea it was happening. So I just got on a bus to Victoria Station. The traffic was a bit fucked. But I got there eventually, and I was going to get the bus from Victoria Coach Station to Oxford. And I'm sitting there waiting for the Oxford Tube to turn up, which is the bus that goes to Oxford. And everyone's phones stopped working. And I'm like, why the fuck are the phones not working? This makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I jump on the bus, and then someone on the bus, because this is like before smartphones and everything, someone on the bus had a fucking radio. And they were like, and there were sirens everywhere though, like something was totally up. And someone had a radio, and they were like, there's been a bombing, blah, blah, blah. And that was the moment where that feeling of being attacked came in. They'd come after me.
Yeah.
And I was pissed off. And not only that, but it was Muslim extremists who came after me and tried to kill me. And I went, only for for the span of like a few minutes, I went super racist. Fuck them. I was absolutely engulfed with fury and just personal rage. And then I basically got to Oxford. Very funny sort of situation, because my dad saw the news and was like, oh, he's not up that early. He's not going to be up that early. That's ridiculous. But my mum knew that I was going to Oxford because I was going to Oxford to go to the Horse of Uffington, which is my mother's astrology logo, with one of her friends who lived in Didcot, who actually owned the Big and Tall stores in England. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. And we called off the trip to the Horse because I was a bit shaken. And I found an internet cafe and got in touch with my father. And I was like, those fucking motherfuckers tried to kill me, those fucking cunts. And he's like, calm down. They didn't come after you. There's no they. There's nothing here. And you also were miles away. You know how many people were involved in the explosion? Let's say a few hundred, right? And then on the platform who heard a big bang, thousands. Then those who were closer to the platform than you, probably tens of thousands. We are getting into a huge amount of people who were personally attacked on the day, who were walking down to a platform just like you were. You weren't blown up. They're not coming for you. This is a horrible tragedy. Stop fucking making this about you. Stop being racist. And I'm like, shit, actually, that's quite a compelling argument. And just talk me down off the ledge so effectively and so quickly. And I sort of took the day off after that. I sort of went, you know what? I think I just need to fucking have a beer. But yeah, and then, of course, the conspiracy theories about them being scapegoated, as you very fucking articulately expressed in your lyrics. But I didn't get to that point of empathy that you did. I didn't ever get to the point where they were victims. And I think that goes back to like my September 11 reasoning as well, when the people jumping out of the building were just pawns in a bigger game, and that empathy wasn't there. And I found it very interesting during this conversation. I've never thought of this before. The fact that even with the 7-7, when I was convinced that these people were patsies who were put up to it in a training exercise, basically just getting paid. And the reason why they got Muslims was because that was a part of the sort of the
war on terror.
The dress rehearsal had to be fucking Muslims, right? And then they got stitched up and killed. But I never thought we should mourn their death. I never thought that we should be upset for them. Now I'm looking back, I feel like a prick. Fuck, it's so obvious.
Well, I had a group of Muslim friends at the time, so it was,
Yeah, okay.
I got to hear their side of it. Be like,
yeah, I come from a
Muslims
very
don't do
white
this,
place.
man.
Yeah, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
and that's, like I went to Pakistan several years ago and hung out with this girl named Adia, and it was a really amazing time. We went to all these mountain places up north, federally administered tribal areas. These places are fucking hectic. There's, death to Israel, death to America, spray painted on walls and stuff. We had the security agencies following us the whole time, and these are the places where the Taliban were coming, because it was up near Afghanistan, coming in and basically shooting kids for going to school if they were girls, stuff like that. But I found it very difficult to reconcile when I was there because everyone was so fucking nice. And it's not just that anecdotal niceness, it's that genuine sense of befuddlement in the fact that there is this narrative around this Islamic extremism and terrorism. And then there are these people where, for example, we were with an Italian girl, this journalist, and she was rather busty. And she wore some shirts that I personally wouldn't have worn in a conservative area. And the guys, they weren't angry at her. They weren't throwing Molotov cocktails at her, but they were looking at her feet. They were not looking at her chest, and they weren't even looking at her eyes because there was a bit of tit, in their peripheral. They were just looking at her fucking feet, just like, I am not, no Satan, not today, not going to look there. Damn it. Oh, and I'm just like, come on, man, fucking wrap up. Jesus Christ. But anyway, that's the Pakistan thing. But yeah, I was there for 7/7, and it made me very angry. But I've now realised that I lack empathy, and I'm going to work on that. I think that's. I'm glad this is. I feel like I'm advancing as a person. I'm moving forward.
Yeah. I come from a very multicultural background, and have always been.
I really don't.
In very multicultural friend circles.
Yeah,
because obviously, like I said, growing up in the military, at the end of the day, the people who are in the military are minorities and poor people,
and it's a melting pot as well.
That's the people that sign up, for active duty, essentially, not the ones that get to go to college and become officers straight away, but the actual the NCOs and everything.
Not your Ron DeSantis types.
My first stepdad, he was a Puerto Rican from the Bronx.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Ramon, yeah.
So that's where I was introduced to hip hop.
Yeah,
at a very, very early age. As a little boy, I had a little red tape that had Run DMC and people like that on it, and he had given it to me. So I was well into hip hop ever since then. And then my second stepdad was black, and we've got 4 black sisters.
Yeah,
so it's just always been very, very multicultural and
interesting.
Been mixed essentially. So
it shaped you well.
Friends from different,
I'm a white boy that got into metal. It's completely different. My story is way less interesting. I think
that's why we had a reggae metal hip hop band.
I have to listen to that. I'm gonna get some of your tracks.
I'll send you some demos. some demos.
Do it.
They're terrible because they're only live gig ones, and we were all fucked.
That's all right. I'll listen to them in the car.
But there's some heavy shit in there, man.
Well, look, I basically, if it's heavy, I'm one of those people when people say, "Oh, I like all music." It's such a cop out and dumb thing. But when it comes to metal, very rarely can I listen to metal and be like, I didn't enjoy that. If it's just a big old cranky loud thing, I'm just like, yeah, I'm happy here. This is fine. But to varying degrees of enthusiasm, of course. But if it's metal, I'm just generally speaking going to be feeling quite at home, which is, I don't know, weird. Probably speaks to some sort of weird masculine issue that I have. Fuck knows what. Speaking of masculine issues, it's a terrible segue. 9/11. Let's talk about 9/11 because it's the elephant in the room. It's the plain-sized elephant in the room. We talked about earlier before, though. We've given 9/11 a pretty good crack because let's face it, it's the conspiracy of conspiracies. Well, it is for our generation at least.
Yeah, it's definitely It's the gateway for a generation. Absolutely,
it was for me. It was a huge gateway drug for me. Michael Moore was a part of that gateway drug, though. Like Fahrenheit 9/11, the opposition to Bush, introducing the ideas of organizations like Carlyle, the big investment firm that has so many military ties to it through the Bushes, Halliburton, of course, Dick Cheney, that sort of thing. This stuff, but it was very leftist and very anti-capitalism. The powers that be are the moneyed interests. They have investments in arms, and that's why the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War as well. I never really got completely on board with the Afghanistan War because I thought it was the same sort of thing, just a money maker. But it was they're all linked, and it was all happening. And of course, the towers were demolished. Jet fuel does not melt steel beams. Blah blah fucking blah. But I'm guessing you went fucking hardcore. Did you get ritualistic on this shit? Is there a pentagram in the World Trade Center? I bet you did. I bet you fucking
eventually, bro. Eventually, there was plenty of numbers and dates and stuff. Like I didn't. They
Gematria or
hit the
something.
Pentagon. They hit the
did. Yeah,
Pentagon.
the penny. Yeah.
All right. The Pentagon. What is the Pentagon? It's the middle of a pentagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got to go there, right?
Yeah. There's tons of symbolic stuff in there.
I
which
never
all
went
mean
there.
bollocks. All means nothing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really does mean nothing. It's just numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very not red-pilled over 9/11 anymore. I
Yeah.
am still there's still some questions to be answered about possibly who knew what,
Yeah.
whether or not they
Yep.
let certain things happen.
Totally
But
agree.
I do think I think the real conspiracy here is obviously bin Laden, obviously Al Qaeda, but I
Yep.
do think like they were aided and abetted by certain individuals in the Pakistani intelligence and in the
Yep.
Saudi intelligence. And
Yep.
that's not to say that the Saudis are behind it.
Yep.
The individuals I'm talking about are sympathetic to Saudi dissidents,
Yep.
which is what Osama was.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, he was sort
he
of
wanted
ostracized at that point.
they wanted the royal family to not be in charge because they
Yeah,
don't
okay.
believe in royals when you're like a fundamentalist.
Yeah, because
Muslim.
the only king is God, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
he
yeah.
looked at like the Saudis, the House of Saud, as like the House of Satan.
False prophets? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and
yeah, interesting.
real fundamentalist Muslims in Saudi and in Pakistan, you know, are sympathetic to that.
Interesting.
And probably helped along the way. And I think that's where maybe the real conspiracy lies, but not necessarily within like Bush did it and it was an inside job kind of thing. But I think there's still questions to be asked. There's still things to be found, but no controlled demolitions.
Yep.
It was a plane that hit the Pentagon.
Yep.
A plane crashed in Shanksville. 4
Yep.
planes were hijacked by 19 men. And that part of the official story is completely true. Like,
okay.
That's where I'm at today, and I can argue that all day. I can argue that all. I do argue that all day. On,
you
on
probably do.
X.
Yeah. What about NORAD not shooting down the planes?
Yeah, that was a really interesting one.
Yeah, I got pretty pilled on that key point.
It sounds good on the surface, doesn't it? But do you know what this?
Pretty hard to pull the trigger on shooting down a fucking passenger plane.
Yeah, but do you know what the exercise was?
Yeah, what?
You know how they said that there was an exercise
There was
that they
exercise at the same time.
had been planning that morning or whatever.
Yeah, same as 7-11.
It was
7-7.
Yeah, that exercise that NORAD was working on was about a passenger plane that runs out of fuel and crashes into a military base because of it.
Okay.
Now, that's what that was the war game they were playing that day. What would they do in that situation?
Interesting. Yeah.
And when like they found out that this had happened, that's why they're like, is this real world or exercise? Because he was confused. It's like, that's not what the exercise is supposed to be.
Yeah, okay. So there was a bit of a like,
as soon as they found out it was
confusion.
real world, they switched. They switched into real time, right? Something else is going down. What do we do? You know?
Yeah, fuck. Interesting.
Yeah, there's things that we didn't know. We didn't know this back in the day because they leave these little tiny details out for some reason. It's almost as if they're trying to manipulate you by omitting things.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that just like, and it really is quite refreshing coming from that sort of background where you really believe in this sort of stuff. And then you get the sort of big picture and you do feel a sense of betrayal. You're like, hold on. Did you know this, you bastard? Because if you knew this, then you fucking suck. If you didn't know this, then you're stupid and you shouldn't be presenting to an audience because you're not smart enough. But if you didn't know about it, you're an idiot. And if you did know about it, you're a fucking liar. Either way, report card, not positive. No, you know, not great. So yeah, it is. There's a sense of betrayal, but we've sort of gone through the real thing of like that sort of like the linchpin of this being going into Iraq, going into Afghanistan, all the profiteering, all the money making, all that sort of stuff. Bush being a fucking crony, and all the conspiracies going back with the Bush family going back since forever. All the way to Grandpa Prescott and all that sort of stuff. But I think when it comes to 9/11, of course, 7/7. Being another thing in between. But I've personally found that until the sort of QAnon space, which I only really found out about during the pandemic. I came very late to the QAnon party because I just wasn't paying attention. Did you get Q-pilled at all or anything around that?
No, Q kind of, to be honest, I was on my way out
Yeah.
around then.
Starting to reek of bullshit.
Like Pizzagate happens, and I was also kind of like, yeah, I know that the satanic elite are pedophiles. I don't think they're hiding it in these emails, though. I'm pretty sure they've got like the dark web and encrypted
they're not this
messages
fucking
and
stupid.
all that kind of shit. They're not going to do that. I didn't really go along with the Pizzagate thing, although I believed in it in essence of satanic pedophiles, run the world essentially.
Yeah.
The adrenochrome thing, 100% believed in all that stuff because David Icke was talking about that again.
I never got
decades
there.
ago. There was
Interesting.
the blood was adrenalized when you would torture someone and then sacrifice them and all that kind of thing. Yeah, we was like well into that. Most of the things that like Q anoners believe, like I believed before them. The only thing I wouldn't have believed in is the good guy in Trump. The good guy in this good Illuminati trying to fight the deep state or something like that. That was just
the
to
good
me, that
politician.
Was just bullshit.
Yeah,
there's no chance. And at that point, I was like, yeah, this is a psyop.
Yeah,
100%. This is a psyop.
These are the sort of things that sort of trigger you.
So I never really went down the Q hole.
Yeah. I can definitely I can relate to that insofar as also when it comes to, and I was like also like you, like pretty much out at this point because I just sort of lost interest. But when they started veering toward the right and becoming more religious, that's when I started switching off a bit. But when it comes to the idea of Trump being some kind of savior or something like that, I'm even just like, take it all back. I'm just a partisan. So, like I'm left of center, I'm more Democrat than Republican. And whenever like something happens where it's like, okay, the Republican's the hero of the story, my cognitive dissonance kicks in and I'm like, can't be. Republicans are bad. That's my entire personality. So like I can't process that. So, once they started making it like a right-wing partisan issue, you've lost me because I'm a lefty and I'm not really sort of changing. And that's not being smart or using critical thinking or anything like that. It's just knee-jerk, reactionary, polemic behavior. And I find it fascinating that a lot of these like sort of left-wing types, like my mother being a sort of active conspiracy theorist, really big on sort of Bill Gates and all that sort of stuff, she found it very difficult toward the sort of like, before the pandemic, but toward when we sort of stopped talking to each other. I saw her on social media sort of battling this whole thing of people coming out and saying that Trump was the savior. And she's like, no, fuck Trump. And she was struggling to maintain being a conspiracy theorist and a lefty because the whole conspiracy theory universe had been taken over with this bizarre enamorment for Trump, which turned out to be QAnon based, which I didn't really know about because I didn't really care. But I was watching her having these sort of battles being like, you don't need to be a Trump supporter to distrust them, 3 brackets, right? And I'm like, wow, okay, this is all getting real weird. I'm not into this, but But yeah, and then they got like mole children and stuff like that.
That started really around 2015, with Gamergate. I think that's where it kind of starts to, the lines start to blur because literally from 2003 to 2015, like politics was never involved. I never saw it, at least.
Yeah, I was always
political. Everyone in the political sphere was practically part of it. Yeah, the left and the right, the Labor and Conservative, Republican, Democrats, all that kind of stuff. Flip side of the same coin. They're all working for Satan. It's all part of the power pyramid. So it just 2 wings of the same bird. That's just what we were told over and over and over.
2 wings
and
of the bird. Yeah, they're not elected. They're selected.
And you look back though, and those people that were saying that was Anthony J. Hilder, Alex Jones, people who have been like proper right-wing conservative John Birch Society members. And
100%.
I didn't even notice it. And that's how they were able to start slowly sneaking all their conservative, very, very right-wing
right-wing politics. And
points.
Republican basically turning conspiracy theorists into Republican voters.
Yeah.
And like it totally worked. One of the things with the political side of things is that from a fairly early age, probably about sort of like 2000 and sort of 3 or 4, really 4 probably, I started hanging out in political circles with a mate of mine's dad, and went to Parliament in Canberra. Got guest passes, went all throughout the House of Representatives when they were sitting, and, you know, talking with politicians, going out to meals with politicians, getting to know politicians. I have politician friends, or at least, you know, ex-politician friends, really. But, you know, I've got that sort of personal side to it. Similar with journalists as well. Like, you know, like I know a lot of journalists. My sister's a journalist. I've got friends who are journos. My podcast co-host is a journo. So whenever there's these journalism conspiracy theories, you're sort of like, but these are my friends, you fucking idiot. Like, I know these people. There's no agenda. Like, I know these people very closely. One of them's my sister, and she's not being paid by George Soros to say what she says, and no one's fucking controlling her agenda. And if she is, my God, she's keeping it a fucking secret because she hasn't told me anything, mate. So, you know, I found it very difficult with the politics thing as well, because I'm like, I know these politicians. They're not evil people. And I've been in their offices when they're making decisions and signing papers and addressing things. And it's just not like I've seen the sausage getting made. So I can't jump on board with this.
I hadn't seen any of these things. I see them now. Like, I've seen how like news works and media, and like I'm friends with lots of journalists, mainstream, massive journalists. And I see how these things are put together. I do see I think manipulation is a bad word here, but the framing of certain narratives. It does happen because
Fox News had the memos in the morning.
Everyone has an agenda. Everyone's trying to tell what they think is the important information to give their audience.
Exactly. And they are often hired for that reason.
Exactly. You get the Fox or the BBC or these other people, and they will tell you the 10 points out of 50 that happened that really like resonates with their audience. You know, we've had a few... we've had some coverage in the BBC, and we've seen how like they don't necessarily tell our whole story because they ain't got time. At the end of the day, they don't have time to tell us the whole story.
Time limits.
So they figure a way of telling a narrative, like the most important version of like my story, essentially. You know, so I'm always like annoyed at like certain bits that get left out because I feel like, oh, that's real good context.
It's really important.
And you've kind of dropped it, but they didn't see it as that. You know, but I've had it with, I think, Charlie Hebdo. Like the Charlie Hebdo thing was cool. I've never been a big fan of Charlie Hebdo, obviously, because I'm like religious.
But also, exactly.
But you know, the journalist approached me, and it was awesome, and he was so funny, and we had a really good time. We had an awesome conversation. And he was like, dude, I'm making this whole article about you.
Interesting.
Like they wanted me to get like 3 people on here, and I'm throwing them all away. I want your story. It's just like amazing. He took it to the editor, and they're like, no, we want 2 stories.
Oh, really?
We want another one to counter it.
Balanced perspective.
Yeah. So he had to cut so much out. Yeah.
Our national broadcasters so similar. They are obsessed with making sure they're balanced. Yeah, that's so frustrating. And it's the editors, and they have their own agenda, which is usually at least trying to appear to be some sort of balance, something like that, because they're a national broadcaster and they have charters they have to fit within and stuff like that. But it's good that you've had this sort of experience with that sort of humanizing element of realizing that journos are people too. So, absolutely. You know, when Nuremberg 2.0 does happen and my podcast co-host is hung or hanged, I always say hung. That's Hunter Biden is hung. People are hanged. That's why I got to remember it. But you know, when he is hanged, I'll feel really bad because I unfortunately know the truth that he's a good bloke. But he was asking for it by speaking out against the truth tellers of this world.
Why aren't you hanged as well?
Oh, I'm not a journalist.
I'm supposed to be.
I'm sweet. No, you're fucked. Yeah. But you put your head above water, which is the problem. No, I'm maintaining. So far, No one has said that I should get the rope, which is cool. So I'm just taking that as a general green light. And no one's really called me a journalist outside of myself. When someone asked me about incels and they said, what should we say you are? And I said journalist because I wanted to get a spot on a show called Background Briefing. And it's a whole nother rabbit hole I'm not going to run down. But other than that, me calling myself a journalist once in a Swedish publication, no. So enjoy the rope. I've heard it sucks. But I'm going to be watching on TV, or I'll go and watch it live because, apparently that's what's going to happen.
Come and cheer me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have a big sign saying, I believe in you, whatever that means.
Let's just hope they have a short rope because remember, I'm 6'6".
Yeah, well, that is going to be challenging. Oh, don't worry. We'll make a special galaxy. Oh my God, no. Sorry, I said a quiet part out loud. But yeah, so that's the general sort of vibe. Like, I think what we've tried to sort of express here is what the beliefs are and where they are and how it feels to sort of look back on them in hindsight and see that, okay, we don't want to harp too much on about we were wrong and now we're right sort of thing, but that is a miserable fucking place to exist. The idea that you're being slowly killed from above by a fucking gradual depopulation program, that's not fun. And you can't even take antidepressants because big pharma's poisoning you with them. So, they make you sad and give you no solutions, which is
didn't
really
even get into the part about the clothes that I wouldn't wear.
Oh, let's have a look at that.
The products that I wouldn't buy.
Some boycotts.
Yeah,
for good reason or
that
dumb
had a
reasons?
logo on it, mate.
Really?
Okay.
Symbolism, right?
Yeah. Look, last October is the first time, and it was a really big deal for me, all right, that I bought a Nike top.
Interesting.
Because I had boycotted Nike the whole time I was a truther. Yeah. Not because of the unethical sweatshops or
God forbid.
any of that sort of stuff. No, it's
No,
because there's
reasons.
A swoosh on it.
Yep.
And the swoosh on it was a symbolic reference to Saturn. And
amazing.
What
because the rings around the planet?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And if I died wearing that, my soul would be bound to Saturn and would not go to heaven.
Oh, that's a bit sad.
If I had any of these symbols, these occult symbols, like a 5-pointed star, I'm going straight to the devil. If any of these sorts of things happen, that is literally what I thought.
Interesting. It's like bacon.
That these were magic
Muslims.
symbols, and that they're kind of you're marked. And again, why does it always go back to David Icke? Because it does. Okay, because he used to say that the soldiers that would die in the wars, they had medals on or they had other insignia on. Yeah, so I wouldn't wear these as insignias or symbols of anything kind of occult. Even the apple that you got behind you.
Interesting.
The bitten apple on the screen is
Adam and Eve.
Symbolic of being tempted by the talking snake, which again, I did not think that was a talking snake because the word for serpent in Genesis is nakash, Nchsh, and that means shining one.
Wow, deep.
Yeah, it can mean serpent, it can mean diviner, or it can mean the shining one. So I always thought of that as the shining one, the Illuminati.
Oh, wow, because the all-seeing eye and the things
Lucifer. And Lucifer as well, because he's supposed to be the brightest angel. Because he's adorned with lots and lots of jewelry. So that's who I thought it was. Never thought it was a talking snake. Always thought.
Yeah, interesting.
That's what that was.
Interesting.
But yeah, I wouldn't buy anything, mate. We wouldn't buy Christmas cards if they had 5-pointed stars on them.
Oh, fuck.
You try and buy a Christmas card without a fucking star on it.
Oh, man, that's so intense. Your life is just sort of guided by these continually changing symbolic rules.
I'll tell you the weirdest thing.
The stakes are so high.
The weirdest thing is that you think that you're liberated by this knowledge.
Oh my God, that's so true. Because you've seen the truth, right?
Yeah. And I know how to combat it, and I know how to not be taken to Saturn. But now looking back at it, I see how oppressive it was on my entire life in everything that I did. It's the reason I didn't ever like seek to get signed, because I didn't want to be owned by the mainstream.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I
That's
could
a
have
shame.
been. Could have been with my band. I could have been when I was solo. There's plenty of opportunities where I could have got signed to a record label, and I didn't do it.
Yeah, you didn't shoot your shot.
Because I was going to say, nope, I'm going fully independent.
Yeah.
And it worked for a while. You know, I mean, I like the first year of doing my own hip hop stuff, I sold 20,000 copies in a year.
Fuck, that's not
like,
bad.
All my own money, £10 a pop.
Yeah, wow.
Bro, you know, like I lived off that for a while.
Yeah.
I definitely held myself back because of all this stuff. I didn't get a mortgage.
Yeah.
Me and my partner didn't try to have kids.
Yeah.
I didn't bother with, like I said, the career and getting signed or any of that stuff because I didn't want to be locked into their slavery or anything, but not realizing I have become a slave in my own mind.
Total. The irony of like Alex Jones' Prison Plumber.
And I can totally see how oppressive it was.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. You are. You're a prisoner in your own sort of like, you know, of your own making. And I think it's interesting the fact that you've taken so many liberties with some of these theories, especially the sort of the Genesis and the Apple thing and stuff like that, where not only have you sort of locked yourself into this I can't be bound to Saturn sort of thing, but you're not only just taking cues from David Icke and Jones and all these sort of mad people, but you're also making some of them up. You're connecting the dots yourself and then creating putting extra bars in the prison cell. How fucked.
Yeah, totally. After a while, mate, I didn't need these people anymore.
Yeah.
You know, when me and my partner were together, like 2010, we got together. By 2011, 2012, we had stopped watching pretty much everyone. I mean, like, to be fair, I thought at that point Alex Jones had been possessed by a demon as well.
Possessed by a demon? Look.
No, just straight up possessed by a demon.
To be honest, not disagreeing. I can't actually argue that point.
But yeah, it's like we didn't need these people anymore. We had gone a bit further. There's some people, influencers in the conspiracy world that I never mention their name because they are toxic. Like, oh no, it's not even too toxic. It's that they have so much information they will pill you.
Yeah,
and if you don't know how to combat that information, you will be pilled.
Yeah.
There's certain names I do not mention, but these are the people that we were looking into, and because of that, we started writing our own blogs. We started watching the events unfold ourselves, and started to decode everything. Decode everything. Like if you go to my pinned thread on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yes.
I have my pinned thread has like blogs on it, my old conspiracy blogs. And you can see me and my partner like break down like the royal wedding and the death of Osama and the Glastonbury festival and all these different things. Like I was breaking down. Yeah, man. Yeah, like
the pyramid stage, right?
Well, yeah. And the people that designed the pyramid stage, right, were proper hippies.
Yeah.
And the guy who did it said that he got the vision in a dream.
Okay.
And that he was told in his dream to build a spiritual satellite to the stars.
Okay.
So when people would perform, it would shoot up like spiritual whatever into the, and I took that as like proper evil, essentially.
Interesting.
I think Churchill's granddaughter was part of it, and obviously he was a druid, and just it was so many connections like that. It did make it seem like dark, you know.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It's just England, man. It's England and the rich history with druidism.
Yeah,
that's what I can see it as now. That's it. There's
that makes sense. Not really something we sort of do here. Yeah, Springsteen, when he played Glastonbury, I went when Springsteen and Blur played. Blur was amazing. And Springsteen did like a real like long set with a lot of absolute B-sides, which is probably not exactly the best thing for the Glastonbury crowd. But he played very sort of this very gospel-y song off his new thing and did this like evangelical thing. I can't remember it well because I haven't seen like footage or anything. I just remember it from the time. And it's so funny. Like if I thought that the pyramid stage was in some way, shape or form satanic, and then I saw Bruce Springsteen doing this sermon-like performance, oh man, my brain would have gone to all sorts of fucking crazy places. Luckily, I was just there drunk on cider.
we broke down the 3 headline acts. Like they each had their own blog because we were breaking them down, like the Coldplay set, the Beyonce set, and the
Interesting.
U2 set, and how they were all
Interesting.
like tied into their satanic stuff. Like I mean, like U2,
Yeah.
the band. Like there's a Sumerian demon called U2,
Interesting.
spelled UTU.
Wow.
And
They're
there's like
asking
a
for
point
it.
where, and he's a horned demon, right? And there's a point where Bono's like rocking around the stage with his fingers on his head like this, like he's a bull running around and shit. And it's just all this stuff because we know all these different
All
things
this
about
shit, you bring it together.
history and all this stuff. Yeah. And so we're like, oh, that must mean this. Oh, that's a reference
just
to that.
Piece it together.
Oh,
So
mate.
did you
And we
talk
just-
about the stone circle at all?
Yeah. Yeah. Just talked about everything, man.
Because the stone circle is where you got acid, where you got drugs. Stone circle is where you go and you just ask around for
Yeah.
drugs. I got fake acid there, which was very upsetting because I wanted real acid and it wasn't. But I did get some real acid there. But I was feeling very once bitten, twice shy about buying acid. I made sure it wasn't the same design. I'm like, oi, I got fake acid here. This is bullshit. And I think there's some ketamine going around. Stone circle was great. So yeah, Satan's got good drugs, but also bad drugs. So don't buy off Satan. Buy off the good people, but not the satanic people at the stone circle who rip you off and take your pounds and don't give you acid. Bastards. Well, on that cheery note, I think we've basically summed up the conspiracy universe in a couple of hours of what I would say is cracking content. That was a really good chat, man.
Yeah, man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
It's
it's
getting
really
late,
good.
but it's awesome.
Yeah. I've got to go to fucking work, man.
I gotta go to bed.
Let's sum this up by saying where people can find you and how they can find your excellent podcast, which they should absolutely listen to. I love it. It's great, and I learn shit from it. You know, like I do look into these things, blah blah blah. But when you guys do a deep dive on something, or even just the blog post, I'm like, fuck, I did not know that. It's constantly blowing my mind.
Yeah, you can find me on X.
Yep.
I have to say X. I have to get used to saying X.
Yeah,
like I'm going to be
you're a part
around
of the
there for a
system
while,
now,
so I
man.
have to say it.
Yeah,
I got a blue
Yeah,
tick,
that's it,
you know.
yeah.
I got to say it. I got to play the game.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, and that's fine. Sometimes you got
Yeah.
to play the game to play the game, right? Is what it is.
Well, follow me on X at Brentley SDCIC, and if you want the podcast, it's available absolutely everywhere. Some dare call it conspiracy, and you can find us at somedarecallitconspiracy.com. Super
Excellent.
easy.
Yeah, that's
And
perfect.
you definitely want to start tuning in because our buddy Joel here is
Yeah.
a new Some Dare member.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And for the Some Dare listeners, you can find me at Crunchy Moses on X/Twitter. Crunchy Moses is with a K. And to be honest, I'm search banned anyway, so I don't think you can find me. And I don't spend that much time on there. But I also am on Facebook. If you look up the Conditional Release Program on Facebook, you will find us. And if you look up the Conditional Release Program on any podcast app, you will find us. Now, I must give a disclaimer. Some of our content is a little bit Australia-centric. So if you have an interest in the Antipodeans and how fucking weird we are, it might tickle your fancy. But sometimes you might press a skip button through some of our very niche Australian content. But we do a lot of deep dives. Recently did The Sound of Freedom. And that's very location neutral. So I think you'll get some joy out of that. So, pick apart our back catalogue, have a bit of fun, and there's some really dumb shit in there. Really, really dumb shit because the pandemic was really, really dumb. It was really, really dumb. Just so much dumb shit.
I like hearing about Australian stuff.
Yeah, we're funny.
That's
We're
my
a funny
bucket
bunch.
list. That's where I want to move. I want to move to see you guys. I want to
Look,
move
man.
to Australia.
We'll happily take you. Well, our immigration policies are pretty fucked, but please do. I will facilitate this. I will put in a good word. Oh, thank you very much, listeners. Someday listeners, Conditional Release Program listeners, we love you all in equal parts and look forward to talking shit to you in the future. Thanks, guys.
Peace. Much love. Many blessings.
I don't think I ever want to talk to any of those people.
Fuck me, you guys are bastards!